Hey, what's up, guys? My name is Jay Alexander, and welcome to another episode of Ship Life. So, for today's installment, I've decided that I'm going to go ahead and talk about something that you guys have been asking about for quite a while, which is, how the heck do you get paid while you're working on a cruise ship? Do they just dump off a bunch of cash at your cabin, or do you get direct deposit with your debit card? How does it all work? So in today's episode, I'm going to answer that question. I'm going to be talking about how you get paid. Along with it, I'll be talking about your possible benefits, along with other compensations that you may receive while working on the cruise ship. We're going to talk about that, and of course, a little bit more in today's episode. So without further ado, I'm not going to waste your time. Let's go ahead and get started, shall we?
Let's go!
Alright, so first and foremost, what's going on, guys? I hope everybody is doing well. It is officially November, which means we have two great holidays coming up, which is going to be, of course, Thanksgiving, which I'm really excited for because I was not home for Thanksgiving last year, meaning I had to settle for that crappy cruise ship Thanksgiving, which is not very good. I'll talk about that on another day, and of course we got Christmas. But guys, just of course remember, we got to finish this year strong, so make sure you guys just keep doing what you're doing, keep grinding, because the year is not over yet. Anywho, let's talk about these monies, all right? When it comes to the money situation, I know it's a big deal, especially around this time of year because everybody's buying presents and whatnot, which is the reason why I decided to do this episode, because I've been getting asked about it so much. So guys, in a nutshell, for all the people that are just trying to hurry up and get a quick answer, the way you get paid on the ship, the room steward actually brings a bag of money to everybody's room, and they drop it off every Friday. It's actually a pretty cool process, and no, I'm just kidding, guys. That's not really what happens, obviously. However, there is a finance department on the ship, which I'll get into. But either way, let's go into the process as far as how it works when you're getting paid on the ship, because honestly, it's actually a lot more simple than you guys may believe. Alright guys, so before I dive too deep into this episode, please keep in mind that everything that I say, do not take it verbatim. Just understand that everything that I say is subjectional, and there are a lot of factors when it comes to money in almost every situation when you're talking about ship life, because it always depends on what cruise line you're working with, your position, and even the type of contract that you may receive, because everybody has something different going on, right? Somebody may be hired directly to the cruise line and get paid different. Somebody may be contracted to an agency. You just never know. But just getting into it, guys, basically what happens on the ship, to make things easier, you get a basically an issued card that works out for you on the ship, right? You get your own debit card. Now on my ship, for example, we had like what was called an Ocean Pay card, which came through another company called Brightwell, and they were kind of third party like banking for the ship, meaning they handled all the money for the crew members, which actually was pretty cool. But that's honestly not even how we really used our money, especially when it came to being on the ship, which I'll explain. So as you guys know, on the cruise line, there are literally people from all walks of life, crew members from all over the world. So from this perspective, just imagine that everybody has a different bank and debit card from literally all over the world, whether it be Visa, MasterCard, what have you. So since the cruise lines don't want to have to deal with a million different credit cards trying to decipher what is where and if the money is accurate or whatever the case is, because they deal with it enough for the crew, or the guest rather, they want to make it easier for the crew. So they give you one card that you can have, that you can use, where they allocate all the money for every crew member into one specific place so that it's easier to deal with, right? They allocate that money, and it just becomes part of the whole process when it comes to you spending money and earning money on the ship. But at the same time, you don't really use that card on the ship. Basically what happens for us, we have our ID card that we use on the ship that opens our door, but it does another thing as well. It's our debit card while we're on the ship, but they do that for a lot of reasons. Mainly, particularly, they can track how much that we're spending. But it's also a very, very dangerous game when it comes to that situation. So I'm going to elaborate more on this another day, but before I get too deep into the whole pay with your Ocean Pay debit card, when it comes to your ID, that is essentially your somewhat of a credit card on the ship, right? That's how you use your money, or rather the money that you will make. Basically what happens is, whenever you go to the crew bar or you make a purchase on the ship, you'll swipe your ID, and it basically just racks up a debt that you will pay off when you get your pay for the month, that, you know, for the work that you've done, right? So if you rack up like $800 before you get paid, when you get paid, the ship will automatically, from the finance division on the ship, they'll take out the $800 that you spent. But again, I'm gonna get more on that another day. But getting back to, as far as the debit card that they issue you before you get on the ship, basically what happens is all of your money is distributed onto that specific card. However, you can, of course, decide to allocate that money to your, let's say, your debit card back home, given that you have the correct information like your routing and your ID number, all that stuff that you would typically need to set up a regular direct deposit. But that's something you have to do in addition to getting that initial Ocean Pay card. Now, on my cruise ship, we got paid once a month, which could be pretty problematic for a lot of people that aren't really good with budgeting their money. Typically you get these temptations to go to the crew bar. Definitely to go to the crew bar, do the excursions, because you're getting just thrown this large sum of cash, which is usually pretty cool. But at the same time, it can be dangerous. Now, what you can do on the ship, guys, of course, you get paid this X amount of dollars, but you can use, again, since you are using your ID card for your payment, you can limit the amount of money that you want to spend on the ship, right? You can be cut off at like $200. Some people are automatically done by this because of their position, which I'll talk about later in the video. But of course, just keep that in mind, guys. And of course, on Friday, I'm going to make a video about how you can save money while working on a cruise ship. So stay tuned for that. But let's get back to the task at hand. All right, guys, so like I said at the beginning of the video, naturally, there are always going to be factors, especially when you're talking about the rate of pay. There is naturally no set rate of pay for anybody, even if they're in the same position, right? Because you never know what their contract is looking like, because everybody has their own individual contract. Somebody might be hired directly through the cruise line. Somebody might be having a weekly salary. Somebody might be on commission or the amount of clientele that they book. There's just no saying. Now, with that being said, guys, like I just said a little while back, there are people that have a set amount on how much money they could spend, being that we kind of have like a credit card with our ID that we use, right? You can only use a certain amount. Like, for example, when I was on my ship, a lot of the people from the spa, a lot of the spa workers, they had a max limit of $200 to $300 that they could spend a month while they were on the cruise ship, because there was no telling for sure how much money they were going to make, because they were on a commission-based type system. All right. So naturally, of course, there is no surefire way to say how much they're going to make, which, getting back into that, guys, of course, I know you guys, a lot of you that have been with me since the beginning know I did make a video on how much money crew members can make on a cruise ship. I'm going to redo that one pretty soon, probably this month. So guys, make sure you stay tuned for that. But of course, just keep those factors in mind. There is no set rate of pay. And when it comes to people getting paid, they get paid different amounts, and they also get paid in different ways. But across the board, in general, typically people will receive, one just giant lump sum of cash or direct deposit once a month. And that's typically how it goes. Now let's go ahead and get to the benefits. All right, guys, so when working on a cruise ship, there are naturally things that you will receive on the ship that you would technically consider other forms of payment, right? But of course, when you work on the ship, there are two things in particular that you are there for. One being the payment, of course, and the second would be the experience. Now, when I think of experience, I don't just think about the travel, because let's be real. If you guys don't know, a lot of the crew members don't really get the idea or really get into the concept of traveling just because of the fact that they're always working all the time. They don't really get a chance to get off the ship. So when I say experience, I mean things like on-the-job training, for example, a resume builder for somebody that may want to work in another country or just some similar type job after the fact, like a tour or something like that, which is something I did. The experience can go a very, very long way. But of course, you can also receive payment in things like huge discounts, right? After you've done your first contract, which is technically like one physical year on the ship as far as working, you can get people on the ship, like your friends and family, for about $15 a day, which is honestly a pretty cool perk. There are other things, but of course, I'm not going to elaborate on that too much. Maybe I'll make a separate video on the types of benefits you can receive while working on the ship. But that's all I got to say about that. Now, let's go ahead and jump into my last and final subject. All right, guys, so to backtrack on what I was saying earlier, there is really no set amount of money that people will make. Things vary due to a lot of factors, right? So for this portion of the video, I want to talk about commission, and along with that, another way that people are getting paid. I'm talking about tips. Now, just to start with tips, I know a lot of people down in the comments are going to say that tips technically aren't a form of payment, but you got to think about it this way, right? And even the US, where I'm from, tips are considered a form of payment. In fact, they're even allowed to pay somebody under minimum wage because they make tips. It's the one and same on the ship. People that are in tipping positions or even commission positions like the spa workers, somebody that's in the auction art gallery, somebody that may even work with the excursion team, and they may have a commission-based type contract where they can receive extra amount of money depending on how much they sell or what kind of clientele they bring or what kind of service they are able to provide to the guest, and if the guest wants to give them an extra bit of money. That also is a factor that is tied into all of the equation. But anyway, guys, I hope all of this helped, at least even a little bit. I hope you guys just aren't too confused. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, as always, guys, please just hit me up in the comment section below. Let me know what you guys think about the situation. If you guys have worked on a cruise ship before, let me know what kind of payment method you were working with. Were you working with Brightwell? Were you working with another company? Were you able to use your ID as a form of payment on the ship? If so, how did that go for you? Did you have limitations? Let's talk about it in the comments below because it may be helping somebody else. I'm going to wrap this video up, guys. I will see you on Friday with my installment of Ship Life. I'll be talking about how you can save money on the cruise ship. But until then, I will see you guys very, very soon. Until then, you guys take care.